Hi, I'm Lauretta and this is my sister, Sharon. We are founders of the plant-based retreat, the Detox Barn, and we're also a comedy double act. I know, funny vegans. Shoot me now.
9 years ago, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease and got myself better using a plant-based diet. Since then, I've just fallen in love with living well.
I retrained as a natural vegan chef, and each week we'll be interviewing experts in the wellness industry, as well as sharing the highs and lows of trying to live well as single mums living together with our 2 kids. So how well have we lived this week? So we're doing these bits just from our morning walk because studio fees, crazy. And it would put loads of pressure on us because we've got to get it done in 15 minutes.
And then sometimes people are watching us, like the studio people, and we're like, oh God, this is really not funny. It's funny in our kitchen, it's not funny with people watching us. So yeah, how well have we lived this week? We've had lots of meetings this week because we're optimising, we're going on Amazon basically, and it's a complete head fuck. There's no way anyone, unless you're 30-something, pumped male entrepreneur, can work it out.
No, it's literally mind-boggling. And, you know, me and Sharon, sometimes we feel in this world, in this kind of, you know, the entrepreneur world, like you're an entrepreneur, you know, they automate everything.
Biohacking my life.
Yeah, getting up at 5 a.m, drinking apple cider vinegar and making millions online while I'm eating my granola and protein shake.
They're all like really pumped. They all slightly speak a language that we don't understand. I mean, we're a bit like, oh, I've locked myself out of Facebook. I don't know how to get on.
I mean, I have actually been banned from Facebook to do ads, and I don't know why.
And there's no phone number.
I'm calling Sharon. I was like, where's the phone number? I've tried the phone number. There's no phone number. Googling how to call Facebook. I mean, no one does that. That's my life. I'm Googling how to call Facebook, and these entrepreneurs are like literally, you know, making 10 digits by 7 a.m. by just automating something on, I don't know. They all seem really intimidating. So we had this meeting and they were talking a language we didn't understand.
And we just thought, can we have a look at a graph to see how much money we'd actually make? And I swear to God, by the time they took their fee, Amazon took a cut, a warehouse took a cut, we were making like 3p. I'm like, I'm not sure this is going to work. And it's interesting because, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm pretty productive when I
said having this leisurely a stroll with our morning coffee.
No, I feel like I'm pretty productive when I focus. But these guys, oh my God.
To shame. We feel like literally sleuths compared to them.
They're like up at 5 a.m, they're
journaling, showering, wanking.
They're not wanking, Sharon.
They might do, yeah.
They probably are.
They fit health benefits.
They fit that into the schedule.
Well, yes, but they don't use porn because that's negative.
Yeah, they don't use porn. They just use real women images.
Yes.
Maybe
wives.
Maybe even 50-year-old women.
No. So, you know, they're cold showering, cold plunging, journaling. Then, you know, passive income, trading before the real job starts, checking on their ISAs, checking on their stocks and shares, call them candles.
Candles.
Are you sure it's candles?
It is candles. I heard someone talk about, and it's actually someone we've interviewed, Jason Greystone, talk about candles. Because I was like, right, I wonder if I could do a bit of stock sharing, and, you know, I got a couple of grand, maybe I could invest. And I thought, oh, he's really good, because I've had him on my podcast. I started listening to him, he started going on about candles. I'm like, no, are you talking about smelly candles? Or we had to kind of sort of say to ourselves afterwards, you know, like, don't be intimidated, you know,
we are who we are. So what? We are women. We've got to say 50s now. Oh God, don't we? I mean,
well, you were really bad at turning 50, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
but
really
not now.
Bad. Not now. I'm embracing it.
Yeah.
So you know, women in our 50s, and sometimes we don't know as much as we want to know, and we're not, you know, up at 4 o'clock in the morning journaling.
No, we're at 4 o'clock in the morning because menopause symptoms have kicked in. It's given us insomnia.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suppose about thinking about how we live this week, I think it's kind of to remind yourself, like, just don't be intimidated. Do you know what I mean? You've got wisdom.
Yeah, and not just that, but also it doesn't mean that you haven't got a place in business.
Yeah.
You know, just because it's predominantly these kind of people.
And honestly, they're a type. Every meeting I have with like entrepreneur that set up their own business,
they're literally bursting from the seams. Their t-shirts, every single one. They're literally
completely pumped. They've got shakes. They're really, really young. But I do really feel like women are missing. I'm just gonna my arm. Oh, I need to do some more weights to carry this. I do feel like can we take a breath? I do feel like there should be more women in that space.
Yeah. God, absolutely.
It's so
male dominated.
We're turning into those twins.
Oh yeah. Should we try and do it?
Lauretta got really insulted by the twins. Everyone,
the Australian twins that they pen
speak
to
at the same time. We're just out on our walk. And we thought we'd get a coffee. I actually thought it was really funny. But Lauretta got really...
I got insulted. Like, it's not us. Not like them.
So us. Okay, we're going to sign off.
Yeah. More women in business.
Here's to that.
Today on the podcast, we are joined by an incredible guest, Joe Cross. His story has inspired millions around the world to take control of their health and well-being. You might know him as the man behind the incredible documentary Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. And in fact, that was one of the first documentaries that I watched when I was looking for inspiration. I wanted to reverse my health condition and didn't know how. Throughout this documentary, I saw firsthand what was actually possible. And seeing that for the first time when I was very, very sick, I mean, at this point I was wheelchair bound. Seeing that documentary and what he did was the biggest catalyst for me to be able to take health into my own hands. So to have him all these years later on my podcast, I don't think he has any idea of how influential he really was in my own health journey. He's an entrepreneur, he's a filmmaker and a wellness advocate. He turned his personal crisis into a global movement. Through his company, Reboot with Joe, he's helped countless people rethink their health and really analyse what they're putting into their bodies in order to create change and become more vibrant and ultimately reverse some health conditions. We're very excited. We've got Joe Cross on our podcast. This episode is sponsored by us, Gavin Sisters, and our very first product, Funki Coffee. It's triple certified.
Paid a fortune to sponsor this.
Yeah, we're paying ourselves. Yeah. It's triple certified organic Arabica coffee and it's boosted with potent adaptogens. The health benefits are many, but don't just take our word for it.
Yeah, instead of us banging on about it, we decided to test our coffee out with our guests at the Detox Barn and take a listen to what they have to say.
They're not getting paid.
No one's getting paid here. Let's be honest. So we've just served Funki coffee at the Detox Barn. What did everybody think?
The coffee is delicious. Amazing. And it's not bitter and it tastes like real coffee.
I was very sceptical, but absolutely it was stunning.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And did you find, because you had it yesterday, did you find you had a crash afterwards or did you feel like you had sustained energy?
Sustained, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
They want to buy shares in the company. Okay, thanks everybody.
For our listeners, you can get 10% off. Go to gavinsisters.co.uk and use the code podcast at checkout. Hello, we are in the studio. Well, not in the studio. We're on an online studio with Joe Cross. Welcome to our podcast. I'd like to firstly say I first watched your documentary, Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, in 2013 when I was in the grip of a very severe autoimmune disease called dermatomyositis. And I've got to say, when I first watched that, it was the first thing I saw which perhaps indicated that there could be another way to deal with my disease at the time. So the first thing it did was it gave me loads of hope. I was like, wow, look what's happened to Joe. Like maybe I could do something like this. And, you know, they say in life, and I think it's especially true with sickness, you know, you can almost only achieve what you can see. So like, you know, for children when they're growing up, they can only become what they see. And for sickness, I was told, you know, I would always be on drugs the rest of my life, get used to a new normal, these messaging from the doctors. So to see you trailblazing like that, it gave me something, an image to have as a vision of what was possible. So that is how much your documentary meant to me. And I just want to thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to be here on the show with you guys today.
Brilliant. And what I'd love to, because I had loads of questions. It's weird. It's amazing to have you on, because I had loads of questions when I watched your documentary, loads of questions of what did he do before? What did he do after? How did he go into detox? I had all these questions. So I would love to explore this with you now that I've got you, you know, for anyone that's listening out there, I'm sure they'll have similar questions. But before we get on to all of that, tell me about your diagnosis and how it all started, your autoimmune.
Right. Well, we're going back some time now because it was around the turn of the millennium. It was around sort of 1999 that I got sick. So what are we talking now? That's over 25 years ago. It's a long time, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And my diagnosis, I mean, you know, the diagnosis and the words I'm going to use, the medical community doesn't know how it comes or why it comes. That they know what it is. They got a word for it. I mean, there's a word called idiopathic that a lot of people may have heard, and idiopathic is a scientific word of saying, hey, we don't know how you get this and we don't know how to get rid of it. And I had hives. I had chronic hives, and I had the hives not just so much on the surface of the skin, they were below what's called the dermis, so all those layers of skin right down below. My mast cells that are these cells that sit within us. Mast cells are really important cells. We all have them, and they are kind of like the first line of defense against anything that infects your body. So when a mosquito lands on your skin and sticks its little nozzle in to try and suck some of your blood, that's the mast cells reacting, saying, oh, we're going to release some histamine right around that area of the intrusion so we can block whatever came in, so we can protect the host body. And my body was getting confused about what those signals were. So, you know, thought I was getting bitten by 1,000 mosquitoes when I wasn't. And so it was the mast cells were releasing this histamine, generally based on pressure, on physical pressure or physical touch, heat and stress would certainly bring it out. And that was the sort of impact was a pressure point. So if I held a baby or lifted luggage or had a seatbelt on, wherever the things would touch me, there would be welts. And those welts could last 5 to 8 hours longer. So I went on a high course of steroids of prednisolone, which is a very powerful steroid. I was on like 50 milligrams, and I was on it for a long time. And that long-term use of steroids is there's a lot of bad side effects that can happen from that, you know, from weight gain to osteoporosis to hunchback to moon face to all sorts of
Diabetes, I'm sure,
a list of side effects that are not fun, you know. So it, you know, I had it for 8 years, and then it was sort of like I was at the point where I was like told that you'd have it for life, and I just felt that was not an answer that I wanted to hear. So I decided to do something about it myself, and that's you know, movie sort of comes in at that point where I've made that decision.
And so what made you make the movie? Because how did you think, right, I'm going to do this and make a movie while I'm doing it?
I read obviously that you're an entrepreneur and you've got a very entrepreneurial way of dealing with kind of your sickness. We've got a problem here. How do we fix it? And I'm quite similar as well. And we're quite entrepreneurial, and it's that kind of like, okay, this is a problem. Surely it's fixable. Is that kind of the mindset that you went in with?
So yes, I mean, I looked at it logically, and I realized that I'd been outsourcing my health to people, and I wanted to insource it and take responsibility. So become the CEO of my own health. In doing that, I didn't have a lot of tools in my bag because I wasn't a doctor. So the main tool I wanted to use was this connection to nature that I felt was a really important sort of, it had played a very important success story in the human success story. So, you know, plants do all sorts of wonderful things for humans, from not just nourishment, but keeping us warm. We can burn wood, you know, in the winter. We can create shelter with plants. You know, we can create medicines from plants. There's CO2 and O2 dance of breath that occurs with plants. So plants are this living organism that if we are in harmony with those plants, we tend to be thriving. And I had sort of turned my back on Mother Nature. And so I thought, well, what if I about face and go and knock on her door and see if she'll have me back? And of course, Mother Nature will welcome anyone back, but you got to do the work. It's not just a case of being invited in and sitting in the trailer. You got to actually do the work. You got to go out there and do the hard yards. So that was the mindset. And then because I was not your typical wellness person, and I would argue that I'm still not, even after all these years, I feel that I thought, well, if this works for me, then there's a lot of people like me out there that maybe from this journey they could benefit from. So if I'm going to go through all of this and put myself through it, then if I film it, it could help a lot of other people. And it would also be a sort of a carrot for me to continue because I've committed to something, and it's like another way of providing a support network to see me through it. So there was the carrot and the stick, if you like.
Yeah.
And so that was the sort of thinking behind the movie idea. I mean, the movie, when you go out to make a film and you've never done one, it was a daunting experience. And, you know, what ended up happening, the movie that was actually, that you saw was not a movie that was planned, because I didn't know that there was going to be people who'd want to follow me and do what I did. And I didn't know it was going to work. So it was a very organic sort of flowing thing that took, 3 or 4 years from when I started to when it eventually came out on Netflix. It was a long journey.
So you went from, just so the listeners that haven't seen the movie, so you went from, a very kind of Western diet, drinking, Barbies, Australian Barbies. And then you went completely plant-based and you did 60 days of pure juicing.
So how did you get to that point?
So really, the way that I would characterize it is that I ate the diet that most people in the world, in the Western world, are eating now, which is effectively 95% of the calories that most people consume now come from processed foods or animal product. And around 5% comes from fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, legumes, plant foods. And when you run a meter, 95% processed and animal, and 5% from the plant world, or you're at an immediate imbalance to how much micronutrients you're taking into your system to keep your structure healthy, communicating and in sync and working properly. It's only a matter of time, if you do that you are starving your cells from the nutrition that they need, and they will not be able to operate effectively. I would, rather than say Barbies and fast food and all of that, I think the way that I would look at it is it's that I was just not having enough plant food. I don't like to define foods as good and bad. I think there's a big mistake, and too many people do that today, creating this sort of, the good guy and the bad guy, or the good and the evil. And realistically, I don't think that helps, because people are invariably going to eat foods that other people classify as bad. And when they eat foods like that, then they feel bad and they go, oh, I'm a loser, I'll just keep eating more of it. And so psychologically, it puts people in a very tough place. So I'd prefer to say, not to say, hey, don't have that. I like to use the mantra of have more of this. And if after you've had more of this, if you can eat more of that, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
So this is where the juicing and the eating plant food comes in, is that this is a way to supercharge and start and, really build your nutritional foundation using these powerful tools that Mother Nature gives us. I mean, most of it's water. Most of it's what you eat is water. But in those water molecules are trapped these micronutrients, which give it this color. This is fresh juice that I made here this afternoon. And, this is watermelon, and there's pineapple, and there's apple, and there's some dragon fruit in there, because I'm here in Bali right now, so I'm using some of the local produce. Mm-hmm. The reason why there's a color and it's just not pure water, it's like 99.9% water. But the reason there's a color there is because the particular micronutrients found in those fruits and vegetables that I just talked about, they have a spectrum that absorbs every other bit of light but reflects off the redness. And so there's a chemical structure to them that has those micronutrient values that are really important for all of us to consume. So I don't say, in the movie I did 60 days of drinking just juice. Which is, we can talk about the benefits and the reason for that. But afterwards, I went plant-based for 5 months. I had one prawn, or Americans call them shrimp, at Christmas. That was the one moment that I had just in my meal, being very honest and transparent with everybody. But otherwise, it was 5 months of just eating fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, and seeds, and drinking juice, of course. And then I was off all medication. So after that happened, I then took a year where I incorporated seafood, and then another year where I had sort of things like grains and bread, and then another year. So it was like in my 4th year, I incorporated, animal from the land. So I slowly over 5 years built back into a diet that is consistent with most people in the world, where they eat animal product and they eat processed food and they eat plant food. The difference with me to the Joe after, to the Joe before, is that I was having a lot more plant food and therefore by default having less processed food and less animal product. So that's the difference. I mean, there's all sorts of theories, and you'll hear a lot of people will come out and say, this is good for you, this is bad for you, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have that, eggs are good, eggs are bad, milk's good, milk's bad. It's just, it basically, I look at it that every single one of us is different. We're all different human beings. And if we get in touch with ourselves, we can listen to our bodies and we know what works for us and what doesn't. But in order to be able to hear and listen, we need to be at a place of balance and of connection with nature. And the best way of doing that is by throwing out all the garbage for a period of time. And that's what my fast was about. That's where you can really throw out everything and then work out what you want to put back in.
So can I just ask? So the 60. So this was a question I wanted to ask when I watched the documentary. So it's good to know. So after the 60 days, you did plant-based. Was that raw vegan? You did?
No.
No. Okay. It was just plant-based, but no grains.
No, I didn't have. No, basically what I ate during that period of time was I had lots of salads.
Yeah.
I had sunflower seeds in those salads. I would eat almonds, pecans, some walnuts. I'd put those in the salads. I had a lot of avocado. I mean, avocado was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And then I would roast vegetables.
Okay.
So I'd roast them. My rule of thumb was effectively that if I've got fire and water, what can I do to the vegetables or the fruits to, clean them with water or heat them,
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot of boiling because I didn't feel there was any necessity, but I certainly did a lot of roasting, and that was nice. So I had some like pumpkins and sweet potatoes that were able to, just to have hot food and warm food was nice.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't raw, and it wasn't, you could argue that it was vegan because essentially I wasn't having dairy. I guess it was vegan, but I didn't think of it like that. I just looked at it as fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and seeds.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to go back to the juice fast because there's lots of controversy over juicing. And I think more in recent years, a lot of people are a little bit anti-juicing because they say with the fruits and vegetables without the fibre, you're drinking quite a fruity juice there. Some might say, isn't that just spiking your blood sugars? What would you say to those people? And do you think it's the juicing or do you think it's the fasting that got you better?
Okay, so I'll never know which one was which because I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I do a lot of water fasting these days as well as juice fasting.
How long do you do? Because I'm interested in doing a 72-hour. How long?
In water or juicing?
Yeah, water.
So the longest I've gone is 16 days on water, but my average that I do is 5 days on water.
Yeah.
How is it? Is it tough?
Oh, well, that's a whole conversation. It's amazing. It's very difficult the first 48 hours.
Yeah.
Then I find it a lot easier. Like if I'm doing a 5-day water fast, day 3 and 4 are really great. But day 1 and 2 are tough.
Yeah, because I've tried to do it before, and I don't know whether I was on steroids as well, Joe, for a time, and I don't know whether. And I was also pregnant when I was sick, and I got gestational diabetes, probably related to the steroids. I'm obviously off steroids now, but whenever I've tried to do it, because I've still got a tiny little bit of skin hangover that I'd love to just heal, and whenever I've tried to do it, I get to 48 hours, and my blood sugars drop so low, I basically become hypoglycemic, and I have to stop the fast.
Right. Well, you could actually do a fasting mimicking diet. Have you heard of the FMD?
Yeah.
So,
I just didn't like I've looked at his stuff and it's a bit processy, the fasting mimicking food that he produces.
Yeah, but you're trying to emulate a fast, and that's like the best way of doing it. So that's I wouldn't worry about that process for those 5 days. It's only a 5-day period. You're going to get a lot more benefits. It's one of those things. Everything's a trade-off, like.
Yeah. It's expensive.
I'm going to get in the car tomorrow, and there's a risk. Oh, I don't want to get in a car because I could, the car could roll over and I'll get injured. But there's everything is a trade-off. So I would say that for those people who suffer that problem of hypoglycemia, then the fasting mimicking diet is a good way of doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'll do next if I can't get through it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think there's so much power in juicing, but let's just take the idea of juice fasting or juicing, because it depends on what you're using it for. If you are an actress trying to fit into an Academy Awards dress, then I'm going to be shying away from the idea of going and doing juicing for 2 or 3 days or water fasting just to be able to fit into a dress, because that's not the right approach. That's all for the wrong reasons, because this is going to create your ups and downs. And fasting is something that has enormous benefits, but you have to fast for a period of time to really achieve those. If you fast for too short a period of time, you are not going to get those benefits, and if you do that too often, you probably would end up doing more harm than good by doing smaller failed fasters that maybe at 48 hours or 72 hours or whatever, and you're just not getting past and into that sort of long.
The autophagy.
Well, yeah, the autophagy, but I'm more talking about getting into ketosis and producing those ketones so that you're now body fat burning as opposed to doing a lot of burning of your muscle. Because look, when you do a water fast, depending on the size of the person and how much muscle they have, I know for me it's calculated roughly at the first 48 to 72 hours. I'm just basically using all the glycemine that's in my muscle. What's it called? I'm just blanking on it. But it's the glucose or the word I'm just blanking on. But it's in your muscle.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you use that up. This is the storage that's in your muscles for ready-made glucose to go straight into your system. So if you do miss a meal, but over a period of time, you will exhaust that. Yeah. And then when that's exhausted, that's when you switch into ketosis. So that's something that, you've got to get through to get the benefit.
Yeah.
But if we go back to this controversy about juicing, here's what I say. If somebody is eating an enormous amount of fruits and vegetables, okay, then I don't know if you need to juice. I mean, I'd agree with you. I'd say, you don't need to juice a lot, because if you're already eating a lot of produce, if it's already 30-40% of your calories that you're consuming, having a juice may not be necessary. But if you're someone that's on the go, on the rush, and you take 6 stalks of celery, take 2 cucumbers, take a couple of apples, take a lemon and take some ginger and put that through a juicer, you've got a green juice there that's an 80-20 rule of 80% vegetable, 20% fruit, and you're going to get more micronutrients in that drink, that glass or bottle of juice, than you would actually trying to eat all of that, because there's no way anyone could eat all of that in one sitting.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off once again, and I'm somebody on a personal level that my way of consuming vegetables and fruits, I do both. And, this is an evening here juice. I've been actually juicing all day. I've been shooting videos here all day. So this is what was left over. So I just thought it'd be nice that when we're doing a thing, just to be able to talk about by physically pointing to something. At 7:30 at night, this is not necessarily a juice that I would drink at this time of the night. This is a juice that I would have after going for a walk in the morning when I come back to hydrate.
Yeah.
Once again, it's at the time and it's what works best for you. I understand that if you're going to put 6 oranges through your juicer and drink just fresh orange juice 3 times a day, that's going to knock your sugar levels around. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it is sugar, but it's not. It's different to having the effect on your body, on your glucose. It's the same as having chocolate. Okay, so let's agree that it's the same effect as having chocolate. However, when you have chocolate, you're not getting those micronutrients and the vitamin C and all the other benefits that are in that juice. So there's, once again, we got to take the good with the bad and make sure that we do realize that we are getting something of value.
Can I just ask as well, because I know you would like, you sort of said yourself, I'm not your typical sort of wellness guru or whatever, which is great. That makes you much more relatable to the everyday person. And Lauretta and I feel quite similar because we've got a comedy background and, we would go on retreats. Everyone's saying namaste every 5 minutes and I found it all a bit irritating. And we just wanted to create a retreat space that was for your normal everyday person that wanted to be healthier without necessarily having to be spiritual as well. And I think that's why wacky. And I think that's why you really resonate. So just talk me through, and this is a question I always had. So you've gone from like an Australian businessman to doing this 60-day like juice fast. How did you get there? I mean, did you do some research? Did you find some doctors?
Why did I decide to do that?
Yeah, how did you get there? Yeah, like in what, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so this was the logic part that was, as I talked about earlier, that I felt that there was this connection with nature. The plants had been there and I'd sort of turned my back. So I wasn't going to fast. I was just going to eat vegetables and fruits for 2 years. I mean, what didn't come through in the movie, because I wasn't filming it when I was making this decision.
Yeah.
There was no movie then.
Yeah.
Was that, I was going to just eat fruits and vegetables for 2 years. And if after 2 years I was still sick, I'd say, well, obviously it's not because of that, because I've just given it a good 2-year go.
Yeah.
So that was the first start point. And then I started to focus on fasting and the water fasting and how the healing benefits of water fasting. So I was then conflicted between eating produce and water fasting. And then the idea of the juicing was the sort of compromise in the middle. And so that's how that came about. And I didn't really think that I could water fast for a really long period of time back then. I thought the maximum I could probably do would be a week. And given how long I'd had this illness and, I was 40 at the time, it was like, I'm just not sure that I could go, that the amount of damage I've done, that a week of fasting would be enough. That's why I sort of went to 40 days and then 60. I decided before we started filming that it'd be 60. It was just a random. There was another JC who did 40 days, so I didn't want to be compared to him.
And did you have any mentors, and do you still have mentors that inspire you, that you reach out to?
Oh, look, at the time, there wasn't really anybody at that stage. I mean, I think, my mentors have been my parents, that's sort of my mentors. I think in today's world, the older you get, like I'm now nearly 60, I'm 58 right now. And, the older you get, you realize how flawed people are. And therefore, I mean, the reality is when you're young and you're in your teens or early 20s, you look to your parents and you think they're most people do, not all do, but you don't realize that you think because they're older they've got all the answers, or at least I did, and they don't make mistakes, but they do, and we do, and I do. And so I don't really have people like that I hold up in a high level. What I guess I'm always, there are things that inspire me a lot in humanity. I'm inspired by people who are musicians who can write. Some of these people who can write these TV shows and movies, and comedians who can get out there and do I'm inspired by all that. I like watching, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent. I like seeing the golden buzzers on YouTube. They bring a tear to the eye. All that stuff, I love all of that stuff. But I don't have idols. I don't, an idol would be probably U2, the band. That'd be...
I thought you meant us too.
It's like, wow, Jesus, we've made an impact.
Yeah. I'll travel to all over the world to see that band. But that's kind of the soundtrack of my life. So in the wellness world, I think, and it's very interesting what's happening now. You get I've got a lot of friends in the wellness world. I just think we have to be very careful and take a very responsible position, because there are a lot of people that follow me. There's a lot of people that look up to me. There's a lot of people that look to me for answers. And I don't have all the answers. I have some answers. I have some experience in things, and I just think that you got to just know your place and realize that you just it's a responsibility, and so you got to give an answer that it works for me, and I say this works for me, and then there are some things that I know about because I've learned and I've studied, so there are some things I can talk to, but there's a lot I can't, and there's more that I can't. I'm sometimes a bit surprised at how many people out there talk about so many different things. And I'm like, really? I thought we had a lot of scientists and people who went and studied for 20 years and that's their expertise. So I'm in that sort of camp. if that makes sense.
There's sort of a lot of phonies out there. I get what you're saying.
There's also a lot of tossers out there.
Yeah.
Competitive wellness gurus, you know, but let's put that to one side. And I think it's quite, that's another, but it's also, I think it's very interesting. And I think it's important what you're saying, because there is responsibility. And even for Sharon and I, who we are sometimes guiding people and helping people.
I don't want to give people, like, I think you said, and I actually have picked up something that you've said. And it's helped me guide other people. And it's something like when people sort of start asking me about kind of healing and getting better. And I sort of say, you know, obviously genetics load the gun, environment triggered it. And this is something I want to ask you about in a minute. But I was in a very toxic marriage when I got sick. And so my environment, I think, probably triggered this response in my system. So when I told them what I did, which is fundamentally similar to you, I didn't do 60 days. I've done a few 28 days, and but 100% plant-based, nutrient-dense, whole food diet, gave up alcohol, and I've stuck to that ever since. But what I wanted to say is, like, you could do exactly what I've done and not get better. I'm not saying everybody that does what I did is going to get better, and I don't want to give that sort of false hope, because I'm not a doctor. No. Similar to you, I've had a bit of experience. People say to me as well, and actually, we were just interviewed recently for the Daily Telegraph, which is coming out. And I think she asked me a question like, it sounds like it was mindset for you. And I was like, I just think we've got to be really careful, like, because then you're sort of saying to people, oh, if you've got the right mindset, you can get yourself better. I did have a good mindset. I did have I don't want to be sick mindset. There's got to be another way. But it's quite a simplistic thing to say. And it might make people feel bad about themselves. Like, be positive. Why don't you be a bit more positive and you might get better? And that can be quite dangerous, I think.
Yeah, look, you know, the data shows that 20% of chronic disease is not caused from lifestyle choices. It's just like luck of the draw, bad luck.
Yeah.
80% is. So what I tell people is that if you go by the averages, you've got an 8 in 10 chance that if you really stick to this for a year or 2 years, it'll work. But there is that 20% chance that you're one of the unlucky ones where it was always going to happen no matter how holier than thou you were. Do you know?
But also I say, even if you were one of those 20% and it doesn't work, I'm telling you that if you eat this way and you drink this way, you will feel better.
Even if you don't heal yourself.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The side consolation prize is that maybe something else you were going to get sick with won't happen. So, so, you know, like
preventative. Yeah.
And you know, we're all going to get to a point where we are going to succumb to something that's going to transport us onto, you know, the big garden in the sky. So it is going to, there are points in your life where you are going to have to accept that with age comes injury or comes other, you know, I mean, I had a disc that ruptured last year in
Me too. I had that as well.
And it created a terrible sciatica for me, and it was incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you know what I'm dealing with, Loretta, you understand. I mean, it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
I mean, honestly,
not been able to walk properly. So I had surgery in January of this year. So that's like 2 months ago. And I'm still not 100%. I mean, I'm so much better than where I was, but I've still got, like, I can't go for a 2-hour walk in the morning without, I mean, I can do it, but it's really painful. So I'm kind of not doing it now. I'm waiting for more recovery. But it's frustrating, and that's wear and tear. You know, that's what happens. I mean, you know, the system. I've been standing up for 58 years, and it burst. You know, the shock absorber gave in, I should say. So these are things that, as you get older, we have to accept. But there are ways to mitigate that. You know, the medications, like most people at my age are on some form of medication. I'm touching wood here that with my lifestyle, I am not on medication, which is great. I had to be on it last year with the pain because of my disc, but you know, I got my blood test recently and my glucose, sugar levels were all great. All my numbers, I did my calcium score on my heart, it's 0. So there's a lot of other things that I can be excited about, but I've got to accept that as I get older, there are going to be, you know, knees or hips or stuff will go. That's life, you know, it's wear and tear. So, you know, I think it's important to be honest and just to understand that if you're younger, were there things that I could have done in my life earlier that could have prevented this? Probably, maybe, I don't know. But Yeah, my dad, who's not with us anymore, he was a surgeon, and he said, Joe, the most important thing as you get older is to maintain muscle mass and stretch. That was his 2 tips, you know. Keep the muscle on and stretch. I'm good at keeping the muscle on. I've got to lift my game in the stretching, but I'm at least knocking one out of the park. I do tend to hold muscle well, but stretching is, particularly with the bad back, has been very tough the last 9 months.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel your pain. Mine wasn't. Mine was a bulging disc, and I also pulled something as well. And it was, I mean, you know, all this wellness talk and all these wellness strategies. I was the bitch from hell when because, you know, without exercise, that's the thing.
Walking in nature, doing all the things
that I love. It's really hard to be a nice person. You know, I really struggled with it. But luckily, I'm a lot better, a lot better. And I'm back running and I'm back walking. And yeah, it's still there, but it's much better.
Psychologically, they test you. And believe you me, I was tested. I was definitely tested.
I can imagine.
I actually am quite comfortable how I came out of it. I think I came out of it quite well mentally. I came out of it strong. I'm proud of the way I handled it. I wouldn't want to do it again.
No. So since you've done the juice fast, obviously it's quite a few years ago since you made this documentary, I just wanted to ask you, what have you implemented in your life as a wellness strategy that's changed since then?
So, you know, I think that there's really probably the four legs of the stool when I talk about like wellness strategy. And those 4 legs are what you put in your mouth, how much movement you get, how connected you are with friends and family and people, and how much sleep you get.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that I've been more awoken to or enlightened about in this last, I guess it's nearly 20 years I've been on this journey. I mean, since the movie came, the movie came out in 2011, but the journey was 2007. And so we're now 2025. So it's 18 years. Of the journey for me. It is just how important sleep is and how making that effort to have good sleep and to focus on good sleep, I really think that's been probably my biggest tool, my biggest helper, if you like. My health and longevity has been my commitment and focus on sleep. And I'm pretty good at it, you know. Sometimes I travel and it's tough, but, you know, and it's one of those things that you've got to work at, you know. You can't.
I don't have to work at it. I just love sleep. I go to bed at 9. I'm up at 6. All good.
But I think that for some of us, it's hard to switch off. So you got to like discipline yourself not to look at your phone, not to, you know what I mean?
Now are you a night owl? Are you naturally a night owl? Is that why?
Yeah. I love staying up late.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, no.
I'm not, so it's much easier for me.
But my girlfriends say, do you want to go out for dinner? And I say, yeah, 6 o'clock. And they're like, what? No.
My mum's like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having lunch when she's having dinner.
Yeah.
So what time would you like to go to bed? Like, forget about your wellness.
Oh, well, I generally go to sleep around midnight and I wake
Every
up.
night?
And I wake up about 8. So I get 7 to 8 hours. I'm pretty good now.
Okay.
You know, if I have to be up at 6, then it's tough for me to go to sleep at 10. I find it difficult.
Yeah,
Not impossible, but difficult.
Yeah.
And what are you doing in Bali at the moment?
So I'm very fortunate in that I'm able to go to beautiful parts of the world and spend time and create content and do things like that. You know, I don't need to be in the United States at the moment. I don't need to be in Australia. So I do like this part of the world, and it's a interesting environment. It's like a third world country in many respects. So I just think there's a bit of humbleness you can see by the way that people live and how they work, and it's a nice reminder of how fortunate I am. And you know, there are things like that. So you get the positive of nature, you get a different environment, so it creates different inspiration, and then you get, you know, I just think it's like a grounding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love going to
amazing.
New York and I love going to London. I think London's one of the greatest cities in the world. I enjoy my time there.
Yeah.
But the way I do my day in London is very different to how I'm doing my days here, you know. I will do a Zoom call or a meeting, then I'll go and dive in the pool and come back out and then do another, you know, like it's a much slower existence.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever in London, look us up. And
Are you guys based in London? Are you in the central?
Yeah. Well, we're not central, but
I generally stay around Knightsbridge.
We're right the other end of the Northern Line.
But we can meet in Knightsbridge.
Yeah.
We can go to the Holy Carrot is a really gorgeous vegan restaurant in Knightsbridge. Yeah.
Yes, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that
Go
part
on.
of the world. I like walking around London. London's the best city in the world to walk around on a sunny day. It's my favourite
Oh
city.
my God, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
So if like our listeners that are listening at the moment, you know, if they're sick and tired of being sick, what advice could you give them?
Okay, so the first thing I would do would be to sort of do a bit of an audit on what they're consuming in terms of the amount of produce and fresh produce, and that would be one thing. I'd also be looking at sleep. I'd be looking at friends, and is there influences of people in your life that maybe are weighing too much and creating that they might need a little break from, you know? That
Yeah.
could be bad influences. And maybe there's too much alcohol, or it could be smoking, or it could be, you know, just a negativity that's out there. It may be something that's a stress from something not to do with that. But the first place I would look, as I mentioned, it is food. I would look at food, and I would, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say go and do a juice fast. I'd probably say, you know, what if you took like a week and just say Monday to Friday, that all you did was eat fruits and vegetables for just 5 days. And if you want to have a juice, drink a juice in the morning if you've got a juicer. If you haven't, don't stress. You know, you have some apples or pineapple, oranges in the morning. Have a salad that you make yourself that you can put some olive oil on, some lemon on, but don't put any animal product in. Don't put any processed. Don't put any dairy in. And come home at night and cook some veggies, roast some veggies up, and just live on that for 5 days. And see if there's an improvement when you wake up on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
See how you feel and do an audit on yourself. If you feel the same, then the chances are it ain't food. But because 5 days of that, most people are going to feel so much better. It's going to be a dramatic difference to their whole body. So if that doesn't impact you, the chances are it's not food, right?
Right.
Something else. So that's what I would do. And then if that did make a big impact, then work out, well, okay, maybe I do this for another 10 days. Maybe I do this for a period of time and then slowly bring in, if I love chicken, I'll bring the chicken in, or if I want, you know, fish, but bringing things in slowly and go, oh, look, that's it. It was the curry. That's what's upset me. That's what's made me break out in a rash or gave me gas or whatever it is. You know, you got to be like the Inspector Clouseau or the Sherlock Holmes on your own self, because all of our microbiomes are different and all of us react differently to certain foods. It's just in the world we live in today. I mean, this was what we can experience in one day walking around London, all the different types of foods, all the cultures, you know, that was never really on the cards for our microbiome or our system to be able to handle all of this sort of different environmental food that's come from all over the world from different climates. As we know, you know, humanoids, Homo sapiens, have been around about 230,000 years. You know, that's, call it 10 sets of grandparents, 10,000 to 12,000 sets of grandparents, if you sort of think that childbirth happened around 18, 19 or 20 for all those generations. So, you know, you've got 12,000 sets of grandparents. And the last 4 or 5 sets, 3 sets, have only been living like the way we have, you know?
Yeah.
Where you can have this diversity. So it's no wonder to me that so many people have some issues when it comes to food, because we're kind of like a test, we're test tubes, we're petri dishes at the moment of exploring and trying all this and having it all brought to us on aeroplanes and boats and so on, you know. You can have pineapples all year round if you live certain parts of the world. Strawberries all year round. That's not how it used to be.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. I'm just wary of time. It's been amazing to talk to you, Joe. So thank you so much for taking the time out.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys are great. I really appreciate it. And it was fantastic to be here. And I look forward to coming back. And if anybody out there is interested in the movie, they can watch Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. It's actually on YouTube. People put it up there for free, so you don't need to pay for it. You can just go out there and watch it out on YouTube and check it out. And
you've got lots of books as well out there, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got the books, but they can find me at Joe the Juice on Instagram. And drop on and say good day.
Brilliant.
Lovely. Thank
you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Juice
Bye.
on.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to the Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. If you enjoyed the show, please follow us, share, spread the word. It really helps. And obviously, if you didn't like it, then keep stum. We're single mums.
If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. Please do drop us an email at thegavinsisters@gmail.com.